Why can't I get this to be in the middle? Yeah. Okay.
All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Open Web Sandbox AMA. Today, we're here with Clarian, the co-founder of Tamago, and aka the near partner Spotify killer. Like, to start the conversation would be very interesting to know why you want to kill Spotify. Why is it good that there are alternatives to that?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Hi. Nice to be here. Thanks for having me. Yeah. Well, I think the question isn't just Spotify alone. It's the current standard of where we are with streaming and Web 2 and what Web 3 can provide in terms of better solutions, so that content creators could get paid better, can have better direct relationships with less redundant intermediaries. The potential with using near or just blockchain in general, especially layer ones that really have it together, is phenomenal for what it can do for service providers like artists, content creators. In terms of, it's revolutionary, really. So it's a no-brainer in my mind, as somebody who's worked in the music industry for 12 years, and I've seen, and also somebody that I consider I love the history of music and digging into records and going collecting for music. And so, the more you familiarize yourself with the history of music in general, the more you kind of see these paradigm shifts in such a very relative space of time. And the paradigm shifts I'm talking about are the technological changes that have greatly affected everybody in music. And we know this, whether you love music, whether you're in it, in terms of, people used to listen to vinyl, or the radio was a big thing. There's only select radio channels where you could have hits. And then, CDs replaced vinyl. That's a paradigm shift. That's a huge technological shift that nobody ever saw coming. And what was special about CDs? Well, it was the MP3s, right? It was the idea that you could compress these ginormous, data into smaller quantities, and then all of a sudden you can have an album on a CD, and people were buying that. And then streaming. And that's where Spotify comes in, and that's where essentially you have a lot of the bigger solutions, Google, Spotify, where you listen to music. And streaming's fantastic in terms of accessibility. It's a revolution in itself, right? Bringing exposure from all across the world. But we all know that there's been a massive disproportion in terms of actually getting the content paid out. How do you do that? How do you solve that? Spotify has failed miserably in that regard. So when we talk about for all the awesome things that Spotify does offer, in terms of like AI and streaming capability, the lack of transparency is horrible with these bigger companies like Spotify. The lack of their ability they have no accountability to show you where these funds are coming from, why some artists get paid more than another artist, yet they have the same amount of streams. They've been called out many times on that. So being on chain is, of course, very. It looks at solving the problems of Web 2, but it also, when we move on chain with streaming, you also look towards a future that's more interoperable as well, and that can be exciting to move music across the different platforms. We can talk about this today. There's a lot. I know I'll talk for a whole hour, so I'll shut up now. Otherwise, I'll just keep on talking. I have my coffee, so I'm good to go here. Yeah. Hopefully that was.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay.
So going a bit more into these, it's very important for users, because of course for you and other musicians, it's clear what the problems are with the current system in the music industry and in the streaming industry in particular. But for users, sometimes it's not very clear. They are not aware of where the shares are going, and if artists can make enough money for their living through streaming and these things. So can you elaborate just a bit more on these?
Yeah, no, for sure. Well, essentially, okay, so the average price for streaming that an artist will get paid, if you Google it, is phenomenally low. I think that most people do actually know this, generally speaking, but the consensus is more like, okay, we know that artists make 0.0004 cents a stream on average, or between 0.004 and 0.008 from, like, let's say the top mainstream solutions that you currently have for streaming, if you're on Amazon, Spotify, or Google, or one of these huge corporate entities, right? And so we know that's not a lot of money, but generally you think in the back of your mind, you know what, I love the artist. If they come to town, I'll go to their show. Of course, with COVID, that's no longer, that hasn't been viable for the past 3 years. But you think in your mind, you're like, okay, well, hopefully it'll work out, and you play and you listen to the music. Unfortunately, it's it's a really sad affairs in terms of revenue, to the point where artists have kind of given up on this idea through streaming. And what's very interesting about it, if you actually look at the music industry as a whole in terms of revenue, it has been increasing every year. Obviously with COVID, it was deeply impacted. But if you look overall, the general averages, it's increasing. And what's increasing the most is streaming. And what takes up a big proportion of revenue that moves into the music industry is streaming, actually, which is interesting. So you're talking about billions of dollars of streaming, and yet the music industry is the only industry, if you compare it to sports, compare it to different kinds of service providers, that has the lowest disproportion from the content creators, the artists, of that streaming revenue coming back to them by a ridiculous amount. So there clearly is a huge discrepancy here. And by looking at what we can do with blockchain, for those of us that have been in the space for a while, and you see how you can, eliminate intermediaries, all of a sudden you have to go through a bank transfer and you don't know where the money is going, what's happening with it, and you can do these direct payments, you can track the payments, all of these fundamentals. When you move that into music and with streaming and tracking, it becomes quite apparent. People in the music industry are like, wow, yes, this can be very, very beneficial, very, very powerful, and very helpful. So all those things are very good in terms of increasing the amount of revenue you can get back to the artist, increasing the directness between them and the fans, so that they can actually, for the first time, you can feel like in 10 years, since streaming exploded, you can feel like, I believe we are going to start to feel this in the next few years, and Tamago is going to be on the forefront of this, or we're going to do our damn best to make this our main mission, is to get artists paid way better in terms of putting the music out there, and still have that accessibility, still be able to connect widely, get the exposure, have the social aspect. I can go into the social aspect of Tamago as well, because that's something that Spotify doesn't do so much, but SoundCloud does do that. And essentially our streaming solution is much more like SoundCloud than it is Spotify. It's much more of a social music app than it is something that's kind of disconnected from the artist. It's very much independent artists. Labels can jump in, make accounts, and then you customize, you can message, dislike, build playlists, and that kind of stuff.
Yeah. And from the artist and user perspective, what is it that you can find and do in Tamago? So yeah, sorry, it was just excellent coffee this morning. So what can the users do? Yeah, so essentially it's a music, you have to kind of, I would compare it to SoundCloud when it initially came out, with a BitTorrent kind of backend. And if you're familiar or not familiar with BitTorrent, essentially what I'm referring to is the audio storage of the data. So we're looking to be as decentralized as possible. I love the idea through decentralization. Why doing that? First of all, in terms of security, it's way more beneficial for people, because then you don't have a single point of failure. Spotify owns all the data. SoundCloud owns all of your data. With Tamago, we don't own the data, the audio data. The audio data goes up on IPFS clusters. And then we're building solutions that are scalable so that it can be further and further decentralized with incentives for validators. And the artists don't have to think about that. That's more on the tech side. But if you're both, that's cool. But I do believe in a decentralized future. So that's going on in the back end. If that all sounds like a bunch of jargon because you're a musician, don't worry about it. But I do think that's just think about it like this. Your data, when you upload data, we don't actually own your data. It kind of gets sharded and spread across. That's the idea. It's a shared network. It's the value of Web3, and I believe it's the future of the internet. It's where we need to move to more and more solutions like this. So fundamentally, that's the first thing. Now, in terms of like the experience, like you're a musician, you want to use the platform, it's super simple. I wonder if I could actually do a little demo on here. Maybe. I'm going to think about it. I'm going to think if I can. I'll do a little leak. Maybe. I don't know. I don't know if I should. This is like total spontaneous. I could maybe do it. I don't know if, you know what, should I do it? Let me think about it for 5 minutes and then I'll decide.
can share the screen, right? I can share my screen on here.
Yeah, you can.
I can. Let me just make sure I don't have any weird tabs open. I don't have it. I'm just joking. But anyway, essentially, you know what? Because are you going to put this up on YouTube after, or how does it work? You generally put this up on. You know what? Let's leak it. Let's do a little leak. It's just a tiny leak. So, because we're dropping February 24th is when we're doing the full drop of it's a soft version of the app. But to answer the question, okay, if you're a musician, what you can do, you come on the app. It's just like SoundCloud or YouTube. You make a profile, you upload some description, pictures. You can start uploading music. It's totally free. It's totally free for users to then listen to the music. But then you have what we look at is more of like a Patreon NFT model. And we've kind of combined the two together to create this music economy within. So it's very much optional for artists. So if you're an artist and you're like, okay, this is my free mode, this is my profile, this is who I am, this is the music, people can check it out, then you get 3 other modes. And in these modes, you can customize, very similar to Patreon, different types of subscriptions that are your subscriptions. They're direct to you. So then artists, users can come to your profile, listen to your music, and then let's say you're working in the studio and you're going to say in your description, or you tell your fans, for the next 3 months, I'm going to be uploading some content in this rare mode. We have rare mode, secret mode, and like a live event mode. So if you want to unlock that mode and you want to check out for some of the content I'm going to be uploading, and you can bring interesting content into that, then essentially your users, your fans can go ahead, unlock that content, pay you, follow you, and get exclusive content. So that's very exciting. I love that idea, because then all of a sudden you're following what the artist is doing and you're supporting them at the same time, getting special content. And then the artist gets to actually customize and decide, which I think is very important. But let me show you. I know I've kind of hyped it up because now I'm sure you guys want to see something. So let me just show you something. Share. Am I sharing the screen, actually? Not yet.
No.
No? No? Sure.
There it is. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. So I'm not going to go through all the pages, although they are looking really good now. I'm pretty pleased with most of it. So big shout out to Ryan on leading it on the front end and crushing it. But essentially, as you can see, it's very much designed to be more of a social type of DIY for streaming. And essentially, it's more than just streaming, right? It's a music economy. There's NFTs. You build your following. You can mint the audio. Other people can buy your tracks. So here you have different tracks, right? And if you want to play something, you hit play. You stream through it. If you want to tip, you're going to be able to tip. You're going to be able to tip. You can post a comment if you want, right? Listen through, go through the tracks. If you really like something, you can heart it. You can dislike it. When you heart it, you can build playlists. But we use like a cool little bomb, as you can see. So very simple style UI. We've got a lot of Web3 stuff happening in the background here. But it's not about that for musicians. What it should be about is just delivering the best possible service for them to then create their own kind of special thing that they're doing and that they're bringing to artists. And of course, this is all demo mode. So these tracks are just, for all intents and purposes, just for testing, uploading, and everything, and will be removed. But yeah, you see, we keep track of the comments, the reactions, and if I were to, let's say, I don't know if I should do a little quick just to show you, if you click on a track. But to answer the other question, I would have to go into the profile, but I don't want to give that away just yet. We'll save that for the drop. Yeah. But one thing you can visualize is this. So how do you monetize? How do you make money as an artist on the platform? Like, it's cool to be part of like Web3 and to feel like, our application is essentially zero advertisements, zero gatekeeping, and decentralized. So it has like an anti-corporate motif, which is something that I strongly believe in, because I believe that you should make something that is primarily for independent artists, because they are the majority of the music industry, and they've been sort of neglected so far in the corporate space and also in the blockchain space up to this point, just because we're slowly getting into mass adoption and the media defaults obviously to the 1% because it's just bigger headlines. But I do believe that with good solutions, you know, as artists will come in and be like, okay, this is cool. And my friends who are not sure about what NFTs are, what Web3 is, what blockchain is, once they start to see how it's useful in terms of transparency, in terms of like, you know, protecting your data, protecting your information, protecting yourself from corporate advertisements and people, you know, and privacy infringement. All these things are very, very important, I think, for many people. And yeah, so that value is good. But how do you make money, Clarian? Get to the good stuff. Like, is that what some people are probably asking? So there's the Patreon model, and then there's also the NFTs. So how the NFTs are going to work, and this won't be available till March. So we're just going to be dropping the platform for uploading and purposes at the end of this month. And with the NFTs, when you're scrolling through the tracks, you're going to see a buy now option next to the tracks that the artists or the content creators are choosing to mint. So if you're an artist, you have the option to mint a track. It's up to you. You can upload a track, then mint it afterwards, or do it as you're uploading. Now, if you mint it, it's like in any kind of NFT. So you're going to have metadata, right? So you put in your data. It's going to be interoperable. You can take it off, put it on your wallet, move it to Mintbase, do whatever you want to do. It's up to you. But if you keep it in our marketplace, there's a second royalty. We've created a different standard of a royalty. Well, it's not really a standard yet, but it's our kind of idea of what a standard could be. And it's a streaming royalty standard. And effectively, what that streaming royalty standard means now for, you know, our very, you know, this is very new, and we don't have like a pay per stream model yet that's very efficient. So, but I do believe that's going to be coming in the future. But effectively, for now, what that really means, and what it should mean, in my opinion, is that anytime somebody buys, if you're a user and you're like, man, I really love, you know, I really love Dopus and I love his toms, and then he mints it for whatever, $100. But if you're going to stream it, oops, my bad, sorry. If you're going to stream it and they set up an 80% royalty and you're streaming it then on your mode and you're monetizing it on our marketplace, whether it's through like direct streaming or through the Patreon mode, then that allocation will go back to the person who minted it. So what does that really mean? I know that sounds a little bit complicated. Very, very simply put, if you're an artist, you can do two types of royalties, essentially, with the NFTs, with the data. And the two types are, one, the regular type of royalty, which is, if you're familiar with NFTs, when you buy an NFT, you can set the value, the resale value, when somebody else buys it, secondary value, just from purchases. And the other royalty is actually per streaming. And what that means effectively, again, one more time, is that right now, fundamentally, it just means that anytime that track is being monetized, if they move it into the marketplace and they're making money from it, then the artist will get back their share, and everything is transparent. It's all up on the Near chain, which is super fast, super efficient, very secure, and available. So that for me is awesome, and I can dive into why I think it's super awesome. That's something else we could go into. But here, let's just keep a sneak peek like that for now. I'm back.
No, I love it. It seems very simple and intuitive to use, and I also love that you can do so many things on that you can't do on other platforms like Spotify. You can just listen to music and maybe see your friends what they're listening to, but here you can comment and you can buy NFTs. There's so many things you can do. It's really cool.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I'm super excited. What's that? The cat?
No, I interrupted you. You were about to say why you think this is super cool, the NFT models of Tamago.
Yeah. That I think there's two use cases that I love presenting for people that are new to kind of learning about it, and because I think both of these kind of scenarios really demonstrate the power of the economy, of where it can go. It's quite intuitive, in my opinion. But yeah, so the first use case would be. There's two. So the first one would be, let's say you're a cool band. Let's say you're like a cool band from like, I don't know, like Bushwick, New York, or, you know, like, or Bristol, and you're just like working in a garage, but you're, you know, like you're a local band. People love you. They respect you. And you have a track. You're coming out with an album, and then you do a B-side, or you do some kind of special secret track, and you say, hey, you know what? We're going to mint this track, right? So the first scenario here that's really cool is this. So they put that, let's say they have one track out, they put it for free, or they put a few tracks out, so that's in the free mode. Then they add this other track and they say, this is our special track, it's for sale for $500, and we're going to keep, it's $500 for that royalty, and then for the other royalty for streaming, we're going to keep 80%, you get 20%. Now, if you are either a collector, so there's two things here. You could be a collector that loves this band, right? So you're like, holy smokes, like Dark Glove or whatever they're called, like I don't know, Rock and Roll Shoes, or I'm really bad with band names. But let's say like you're like, they're minting this track. I love them. They're not very known right now, but I know they're gonna blow up. The music's incredible. It's totally on par. Like you have that feeling, you've been following them. So you buy their music, and then you can move it to your platform. Now, when you buy it, you have two options. You can then add it to a playlist that's free for people to listen to on your record store mode. So then what happens here effectively is that all the fans that liked that band, when they want to listen to that song after you've bought it, get directed to your profile, and they get directed to your playlist. So not only are you creating playlists of music that you like, all of a sudden you're creating playlists of music that you own, and then you can actually monetize for the band and for yourself. That's pretty sick. So it's not just a playlist. You have the ability to make playlists, but then you also have the ability to make playlists of music that you love, that you own, that you want to support, and you can feel good about, because then you know that it's transparent. You know that the money is going back to the artist. So that's one scenario that I think is just very cool. It's a very grassroots kind of way of looking at it, and that's something I played in a lot of bands when I was a teenager and then in college, and so that's just something that I like. I don't know, I kind of relate to that vibe. Then, of course, if you want to look at it from more of a successful type of excitement model, the other way that you can also look at it is, again, you can take a look at that band, but then let's say instead of a collector buying it, you have like a huge artist like Radiohead, and they discover Dark Love, right? And they're like, what, this band's amazing. We love this band. They have a profile, and they have, let's say, a mode where what they're doing in that mode, what you could do is, let's say you're just showcasing really cool music that you like. So they could effectively, Radiohead can buy Dark Love's song, and when they move it to their profile, they've got, plenty of more people listening in because they're a bigger band, obviously. They can share it on their socials. That's amazing exposure for this band. It's amazing support in terms of like getting that kind of support model, should they choose to sell it to them, and they get the revenue returned to them. So that's also very, very exciting for younger artists being supported by larger artists, or even more than that, it doesn't have to be a larger artist. It could be a record label. It could be a cool indie label. It could be a major label, like there could be a big label that comes on, and I think that Universal has done this. They have a lot of sub labels that go on SoundCloud. They create, whatever kind of accounts and playlists, and they support different kinds of things. So that all of that in the economy, once you start to see that unfold, I think it's very exciting. It's cool. It's fresh. It's a good way for artists to use minting and NFTs without having to care what it means or think about it, or have to worry about scams. Just make it about the music. Just make it about the content, and use it in a marketplace where it can help artists and just get them paid directly. And we don't have to have advertisements. We don't have to have gatekeeping. And we don't have to take 30%. Spotify takes 30% and then charges. It's just a bad monetization model, fundamentally. SoundCloud, when it first came out, it was amazing. Like SoundCloud, when it first dropped, it was very cutting edge and cool, and you could listen to the music, and it really opened a lot of doors because it was part of the DIY revolution with YouTube. But now when I go to SoundCloud, it's very convoluted, in my opinion, and it's tried to adopt a subscription advertisement Web 2 model, and it's just kind of it's thrown off a lot of artists. They still have the nostalgic factor, but I think that they should be looking at these kinds of solutions. Everyone should, and I think everybody will. I'm just very excited to be taking this step now and doing it and kind of jumping in, with a team of people that are very dedicated to doing this and making something cool happen. So, I'm excited for the next 5-10 years for artists. I think we've been in a dark cloud, and I think it's time to get past it and come up with better solutions. And the music industry has done this so many times. It's nothing new. It's like these paradigm shifts happen every 10, 15 years. So it's a matter of time, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think that it's very important that the relationship between the audience and the musicians is reestablished in a more direct line, because today like artists are more isolated, and then they can be more taken advantage of these other platforms that they need to rely on if they don't have the opportunity to build like a more direct relationship with their audiences. And this is a way to do it, and it's great. So I'm really looking forward to see like what will happen once Tamago launches and its adoption, because I think that there will be a lot of people interested in a platform like that, even from the consumer perspective, from the user perspective. Like I would love to use a platform like that.
Yeah, it feels good, right? Yeah, it feels good because then it's like you don't have this feeling like it's corporate from the get-go. You don't have a feeling like there's already people that are deciding who's going to listen to what and how it's going to happen. And yeah, I don't like that feeling. I think many people don't like that feeling personally. I'm just very anti-advertisements in general. And I don't like the culture that we're living in where the benefit to advertisements work if you are looking for them. And we should uphold certain types of levels of respect for all people of all classes, and not bombard them with, essentially it's like there's a line between being useful and like using AI to be like, okay, this person searched for XYZ, and then you cross that line and you're invading people's privacy and just bombarding them with propaganda, essentially. And you're hoping that eventually they'll buy McDonald's because it's over and over again in your head. You hear like that stupid sound, I'm not even going to say it, but that is like brainwashing, and like, it's fine. I know we live in this kind of culture. It's a consumer type of culture. I'm like, I also like, there's a lot of things that I enjoy doing, and there's a lot of really cool things that can come from a consumer type of culture, but we have to really be careful with that line. And we have to be respectful, especially to artists, especially to artists that are developing in the beginning, because what I don't like with SoundCloud is that if you jump into a platform right away, and the first thing they tell you is that, oh, you're an independent artist. Well, if you're ever going to want to make any money from your music at all, these are the advertising companies that could help you, that have no, you have no connection with that on that fundamental level. It's like you have to automatically then adopt something and then take that huge entity, and that kind of, it crushes in my opinion, it crushes the spirit of creativity to do something that belongs to you, keeping it yours from the ground up and cultivating. You kind of snip the cultivation too early for artists by doing that. And I think that it's not a healthy way to grow as a society that wants to have a rich culture in music, that's diverse and that continues to change, and not just like the same sounds that we're going to hear over and over again, because a couple huge companies that have $1 billion or $1 trillion can, decide what it's going to be and what it's not going to be. I don't want that kind of future. And I think we have to be much more mindful than where we are. And I think Web3 can really help with privacy, transparency, and those things. So yeah, I mean, that's really where my head's at with this stuff.
Yeah, and it sounds that it's a great way for music niches to grow, because they will have a platform that will basically provide kind of like a fair playing field for everyone, not just big artists. And so it will also give the users the opportunity to discover much more music, a more diverse music than they would normally through other platforms that they're looking at your data and suggesting you things that you would like. So that's very good.
Yeah, 100%. I agree with that sentiment. And again, like there's some things you can't control in life. Like big artists are always going to have a little bit of an advantage, obviously, but then they worked really hard to get there. Good for them. Younger artists, you have to create an economy. And like you said, you have to do your best to make sure that, I think you have to be respectful and just try to make it as fair as possible, and transparency really helps with that. And having models where companies are going to have to adhere to those kind of models that are more that effectively have to make them more transparent, more fair in terms of distribution. William Gibson, favorite quote, I might botch it up, but something like, the future is already here, it just hasn't been evenly distributed yet. And I think that's super relevant. And that's a guy who essentially coined, cyberpunk, and that's sort of like the things that I love about where we are right now and what's exciting with where we can go in terms of more creative, exciting solutions for artists. I don't know, maybe I'm getting a little bit, I don't know, too weird. Hey, John, look, we got our buddy John here. What's up, John?
So
shout out to John
X. Right now, I'd like to ask you, what are the development plans of Tamago for the next 6 months to a year?
Yeah, so we're there's a bunch of things. So we're dropping this kind of soft alpha. It's going to be open for artists to start jumping in February 17th. So if you're a musician or you're an artist or even you're a podcaster or some kind of content creator, maybe you're an ambient fields recorder, whatever you do, if you're doing something with audio and you want to start, if you want to test out the platform and get that super early adoption, there's going to be some rewards for you jumping in early. Just come onto the Telegram and let us know. So that opens up February 17th. It's going to be password locked, so you need to get special access. Then February 24th, we're going to do a event, which essentially opens it up to the public. The model that's going to come out February 24th will not have, it's not going to have the NFTs built in or the TAMA. We're waiting to, of course, do the TGE and then bring it all in and make it happen. February 17th, not January. But, and then, what was I thinking? Oh yeah, so then in March, we're going to bring in the NFT market element to it, which we've already built most of it in the back end. I just want to implement it correctly into the front end. So that would come in March. Then April, May, we're looking at doing the MVP, which will have the TAMA. So you're going to connect the Near wallet, and then you can, do the different Patreon modes. You can mint, you can just tip artists, you can just get involved in the economy as well as the social aspects. So social aspects first, coming out end of this month. Grow the community a bit, get some feedback from artists, to make it more intuitive, more friendly, fix some things up, then drop in some of the NFT functionality, see how that goes. April, May, looking at dropping in the TAMA, our token. And then from there, there's so many interesting avenues to pursue. So there's interesting algorithms in terms of what you were saying to, help with tracks and organizing, playlists and building that kind of stuff. There's going to be, there's a ton of things that you can build. There's iOS version. We can actually make the app, because right now we're in browser. And by making the app versions, it actually gives us a lot more control, because when we do the browser version, you always have to make sure that, Opera is different than Safari, different than Chrome, different than this. And it's like you're kind of playing against all the browsers. So the app versions will come out. And then from there, yeah, then there's so many possibilities for growing. But for the next 6 months, that's sort of what we're looking at. And it's tech, right? So these are all the dates, but then things get closer, things get further. But I think we've been on target so far. Listen, we started 2 months ago in terms of building, and the progress has been phenomenal, I think, in terms of what we've managed to do. Getting the actual streaming at the quality level of Netflix on IPFS, that's something that you just couldn't do a couple of years ago. So I do think we're standing on the shoulders of giants because of Near, because of where Web3 is right now. And it's just a question of connecting the dots and staying true to what you believe in. I think that's our real advantage. And yeah, that's where we are right now.
And the Tamago community has also been very active. You've been doing events on Near Hub, on Tamago Island. Is there something interesting coming up in the next weeks that we should share with everyone?
Yes. Well, so I didn't even get into the metaverse stuff that we're looking at doing, because I do believe that the entire internet will be 3D in 15, 20 years, completely all metaverse stuff. And so my partner, Jeff Gold, shout out to Jeff. Jeff has been on here. And anyway, J-Man or Jeff Dog, or he works very hard. So, but Jeff actually built Near Hub as well. He's a co-founder of Near Hub, which is a metaverse on Near. And that's amazing, because our team, it really allows for us to work together with our teams to get a much more streamlined process for considering how do we develop Tamago, not just in the 2D world, but in the virtual space, which I think is the future. Like, undoubtedly, And so we've already, because we have that kind of connection, and we have this very synergetic relationship with each other and the team, we've managed to put together Tama Island, which is now live. And as you know, so Tama Island is essentially a room on NearHub, which is dedicated to hosting interesting music events, supporting the community, finding visibility, things that are happening. And we're using, actually, it's also a good testing tool. So we're using our NFT marketplace for Tamago is already working on there. So if you come on, you can get NFTs, there's treasure hunts, that kind of nature. We have DJs that play every week, Uni. They're called Uni. They're based in Toronto. They have thousands of Twitch followers. They're amazing. They've been killing it. Friday, 2 p.m. EST, every Friday. So this Friday, if you want to come, you can meet us there. We've had Swerve, a live band that plays like this angelic, beautiful, it's Blade Runner style. It's hard to explain. It's very unique, very special. They played last Saturday. We've had tons of, we have open mic coming up. That's the big one. So we have an open mic event next. It's February 15th, I believe. I might get that wrong. I think it's February 15th. Chloe can confirm and John can confirm because he's there. February 15th, there's going to be open mic. And if you want to sign up, talk to John. And we already have a few people on there. So if you're an artist, you could be a stand-up comedian, whatever it is, we want to bring that onto the metaverse. We want Tama to support it. And just the last thing to talk about this, because this is very exciting. I do really believe that the virtual world is like a world, and also the augmented reality world, AR and VR, is really what's going to shape the future of the internet and shape the future of online interactions, offline interactions. All of that being said, Tamago, we do have some interesting functionality, and we're looking to move a lot of what we're building in our, I don't know, kind of like 2D on the browser into the metaverse as well. But I don't want to spoil that. That's stuff that I'm going to save for February 24th when we do our launch. I'm going to be talking. We have some really great guests coming on. We're going to stream it into the metaverse. The event itself happens in San Francisco at Phono Bar. More details, come on the Telegram and check it out. And we'll talk to you about it there.
Great. So I think that that's a good wrap to this conversation. So I thank you, Clarian, for coming in today. It was great talking to you about Tamago. And I'm really excited about the launch on the 24th and many things to look forward to, really. So, yeah. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
No, just thanks a lot for having me on here. I don't know if you guys saw, there's a kitten running around in the background. So shout out to Ember. She's also a big part of Tamago. She's the real brains of the operation. But yeah, so no, thanks a lot for having me. We're very excited about the future of this project. We're also just very excited in general about what essentially Web3 can offer and NFTs can offer eventually, after all the cash grabs, after all the media hype, all the whatever, the things that most people actually don't care about, but for some reason gets fed into our phones. Once that stuff dies down and real applications are developed and utilities, I think it's very standout and clear. Those that are working in the tech space know that the potential there is phenomenal in terms of creating better solutions for the individuals and for individual communities, as opposed to where we are right now, which is obviously there's a lot of work that can be improved upon. So that's our job, that's our mission, and that's it. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Okay, great. Then see you in the Tama Island this Friday.
Yeah, totally. Okay. Yeah. Okay, bye. Take care.
Thanks again.